this a little interesting. He talked about sleeping in the doghouse and nobody getting angry. Yeah, you talked about that. All right, I'm going to double check my reference here because I know once before I got up here and I said turn your Bible to so-and-so and I was somewhere else and y'all were somewhere else different. All right. Turn to Matthew 5:42. Now, as y'all know, I've been quarantined. We've been stuck at the house. We've been sick with the COVID. We don't know who to blame yet, but just only a few million people that I got to blame. I'd actually thought about preaching on this. See, I was supposed to preach last Sunday. And of course, I got COVID, got sick, couldn't leave the house, couldn't be civilized. I've learned a few things from the COVID. One thing I've learned is to teach every child that I have how to make coffee. Because Chad's like, Candace couldn't bring you coffee. Candace didn't know how to make coffee. If I could do that, I'll be, get the coffee pot in the bedroom. I'll be doing good. But I kind of wanted to preach on this after August 1st. I got a text message from a friend on August 1st. And kind of put me in a bad mood. Now, the day before, the last day of July, I had thrown out my back. I could barely walk. I'm in Tennessee. I'm stooped over like this, and everywhere I go, I have to stop every 10 feet, and I have to just brace myself and lean up against something. I can hardly move. I locked my bicycles up on my bicycle rack, which that involved, I'll get where the camera can see me good. That actually involved me getting down like this. And so I get down. Y'all just kind of got to understand the shape I'm in. The whole story is going to kind of make a little more sense. But I get down to lock these bicycles so nobody can steal the bicycles off the rack when we stop at a place to get gas or to eat. I can't get up. I'm stuck. I got my 2 daughters here, and I am in this position. My back is completely out, and I am just here. And they're like, do you need help? Y'all can't pick me up. And so I'm stuck. All right. Finally managed to get up enough strength to muster through the pain to get up. That was the shape I was in. Can't move. I mean, everybody in here has had back problems. Y'all know how it is. You just can't move. And I was mad. I'd got a text message, and it just made me mad. And all I could think was, I'm going to knock the fire out of somebody. So this whole message has to do with, me being convicted about my anger, my problem, because here I am, I can't move, I can't walk. I'm sitting there talking to God. I'd got the text message, somebody had stolen a part off of the van, and it has aggravated me beyond belief. I'm mad. I'm talking to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, somebody needs to knock the fire out of these people. And all my spirituality I can muster up that time, I thought to myself, well, here am I, Lord, send me. I could barely move. I could barely walk. Like I'm really going to be able to knock the fire out of somebody. People who are not used to that, knocking the fire out of somebody, that's not good. But I got really mad. And then this verse came to mind. And then, of course, afterwards, you get quarantined. You're stuck at the house, and then you kind of dwell on this verse. Ye have heard that it had been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. Now, at the current time when Jesus is talking, everybody had heard that, love thy neighbor as thyself. Most of them kind of drop that as thyself off. Just love your neighbor. That's good. But they also throw in there, hate your enemy. Because why should you love somebody that hates you? I mean, Jonathan, if he don't like me, why should I like him? And what's really interesting is this verse really rings out to the time that we live in. This is everybody's mentality. Right now, everybody is running around. Everybody is marching. They're protesting. They're preaching tolerance. They're saying we must be tolerant. We must be tolerant. We must be tolerant. But really, what they're doing when they're doing all this is their tolerance ends when somebody doesn't agree with them. They're willing to love anybody that loves every point that they have. But once they don't line up, they're going to hate them. But Jesus has talked to them. He said, ye had heard it's been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. Everybody agrees with that. The world agrees with that. Everybody living in the world agrees with that. Love the people who love you. Hate the people who hate you. But I say unto you, love your enemies. God really expects us to love our enemies. Because see what really fired me up and what really got me mad was somebody stole. I can't stand a thief. This aggravates me. This is probably why I'm not going to line up very good with the communist government if we ever go that way, is I can't stand stealing. I mean, this person, they stole this part. They're probably going to get $50 to $80 for it. It's going to cost like $700 or so. It's aggravating. And I'm supposed to love that person. I'm supposed to love your enemies. You know, he's adjusting the camera. Must have went blurry. Talks about in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4 through 8, about charity. Charity suffers long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, does not behave itself unseemly. Love does not behave itself unseemly. It blows my mind that I'd gotten so mad over all this. It's hard not to acknowledge that, but I got so mad, so worked up. I can't even move. I can't even walk. But I'm literally at this point, I was fighting mad. And this verse was stuck in my head. Bless them that curse you. I mean, we live in a society where we're not loved by this world, period. We're not loved by society. We have different standards. We have different viewpoints. We stand for what we believe is right, and what we believe is right is what's wrote down right here. And that's not a popular stand because everybody else wants to live like they did back in the book of Judges. They want to do what's right in their own eyes. They want to do that classic line of follow your heart. Just follow your heart. And of course your heart is evil and wicked. And that's what they want to do. And we have them. We have them cursing us. We have them yelling at us. And how are we supposed to act? We're supposed to love them. We're supposed to love them like we do our friends. We're supposed to care about them. When they curse us, we should bless them. Sometimes that's really hard for me to do. This verse is really, really easy to read and to say, yes, I can do that. But whenever you're stuck at the house and you start thinking about everything going on and you think about this verse, you think about other verses that talk about anger, you start realizing, I'm not very good at this. It says, do good to them that hate you. So if you got that neighbor you don't get along too good, they do stuff that annoys you and apparently you do stuff that annoy them, do good to them. If you know something's going to bother them, I had one neighbor, one little thing bothered him, so I seen it happen, so I went over there with the rake, and I raked up a little dead grass out of his yard just to try to keep the peace. Pray for them which despisefully use you and persecute you. Now I'm going to mention something worldly. There was a country music song way back when, it wasn't too long ago, that talked about praying for somebody they didn't like. Yeah, and all it talked about was praying their brakes went out, and that ain't what it's talking about right here. Because see, you take the people that stole, and this is what really bothers me about the whole situation, and me getting so mad about the situation. Okay. My first instinct, if I see them, is to hit them, or to chew them out, or to lecture them. This is. I'm the only sinful person here apparently today, and I'm just telling everybody about it. This was my thought. Okay. I didn't look at the root of the problem. Why are they stealing? Okay. Why are they doing that? Well, if they're out stealing, and especially if they're out stealing from a church, I'm willing to bet they're not saved. I should be praying for their salvation. I should be praying instead of, Lord, let me go up there and hit them. Lord, let me go and give them the gospel. Because if they get saved, they'll quit doing that. Jesus will change them. They'll become a new person. And the interesting thing is, if them two get saved, then, they got buddies that's the same as them, because when I was lost, I had buddies that we ran and we all did the same thing. And when I got saved, I went and told them. Some of them got saved, a lot of them didn't. That should have been the first thought, is I should be praying for these individuals. And that's the same with the people on the news that always aggravate me, who want to do the whole socialism thing. These people I should be praying for. Instead of getting so mad, I have a fear that one day I'm going to be like Jonah. The Lord's going to be like, Joey, go to Washington, D.C. and preach to these people. I'm like, no, I'm going to pull me up a chair and just watch you destroy the city. I don't want to get to that point in life. Because see, the whole thing here is he's given an outline of how you're supposed to be. I mean, I remember whenever this was actually taught in school. I don't know if it still is. But I actually remember this seeing the actual verse in school. Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. That was always called the golden rule. Okay? However I want to be treated. Because I've got to remember, there was a time before I was saved. Now I've got to remember, I mess up. Because see, the thing about anger is really easy for me to justify every reason I'm mad. It's really easy for me to justify it. Because, it hurt my feelings. It made me mad. But Jonathan over there mad at me, that makes no sense. He has no rights to be mad at me. I mean, this is kind of the way we do anger. It's just, we're always right. So another thing kind of popped up in my head about this was my dad preached a sermon once. I don't know if y'all knew this. He actually didn't preach in church. We were at the job site. And he brought up a real valid point. We were talking. We had seen on the news that a man had stolen, I think it's $120-something thousand from a church. And we had some individuals working with us, and we tried getting them to go to church. But even them, they were like, oh, I wouldn't steal from a church. That's bad. I mean, you don't want to do that. And my dad, he just looked at us and he said, have you ever not paid tithes? And I was like, oh man, here we are. We're talking about stealing from church. And then here Dad, he just, in the middle of this whole conversation, just busts it out and gets us thinking, has there ever been a time where God told me to go talk to an individual and I said no? Well, would that not be stealing from God? Or times where, it's Sunday. My offering should be in the box. That's a given. I have learned one thing from this church, one really good thing from this church, and that's finances. Okay? And I've done commented, it's kind of sad. I'm getting financially stable, and now we're thinking about going to communism. But one thing I have learned really well is if you can take 100% of your paycheck, and it will not go as far as 90% will. So before I get all mad and I start really condemning these people for stealing, I need to take a hard look at myself and have I ever stole from God? Has there ever been things that God wanted me to do and I have said no? Because if I've stood there and I've told God, no, I'm not going to do it, and I've robbed Him, I'm no better than the person that crawled underneath there and stole that catalytic converter. But it gives this guideline of everything we should do. Why? Why in the world would He want us to love our enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you? Verse 45, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For He maketh the sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. Now, we're going to hold that little spot there, and we're going to go to 1 John 4. I think we're going to go ahead and start with verse 7. Behold, let us love one another. For love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. This is God's nature. This is not just who He is. This is God's nature. God is love. It's who He is. We're to be as our Father, which is in heaven. We are to be love. When people see us, they're supposed to see a difference. If we stand there, and we'll see later on in Matthew, if we just stand there and we don't love our enemies, then nobody sees a difference. In this was manifest the love of God towards us, because that God sent His only begotten Son into the world, that we might live through Him. See, He gave His life for us. I'm actually going to turn over there. Part of me thinking, I'll quote it, but as soon as I do, I know it's not going to work right. Aaron's going to laugh at me. Romans 5:8. But God commended His love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He proved His love. He showed His love towards us while we were sinners. We weren't saved yet. He died to save us. We were enemies of God. We were living ungodly lives. But He loved us and He showed mercy. And we should be like our Heavenly Father. We should show mercy. We should love. Instead of having anger at people, we ought to have forgiveness. You know, one of the disciples, I just lost it off the top of my head, asked how often should we forgive our brother? 7 times? And it was what, 7 times 70? So that's one more mark for Chad. You got 2 more to go, Chad. If you forgive people that many times, you're not going to keep a tally. It's going to become a habit. Now, I'm not saying we should be doormats. That's kind of like helping people. I'm all for helping people who's willing to help themselves. But we ought to have in our nature to forgive. We ought to remember that, where we came from. We were sinners. We were lost. We were wicked, ungodly, and we needed forgiveness. Herein is love, not that we loved God, but that He loved us And He sent His Son to be the propitiation for our sins, the payment for our sin. There's people running around this town today. They have no idea that they have a sin debt that they can't pay. They have no idea. They have no idea that the debt has been paid if they would just accept Christ. But if we walk around and we don't show love, because love's what's going to get us out the door. I mean, love's what gets y'all out on the van route, right? I mean, you're not doing it for the fame and the glory, are you? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's him sitting there at his job or something where he talks about it. So what do you do? I drive the church van. Oh, wow. Oh, love. Love is what gets us to tolerate people. Love. They get up. Because, I mean, you don't just wake up on Sunday morning and all of a sudden just go magically to a house and a kid jump in, right? You got to make connections. You got to talk to people, get them to trust you. Yeah. Our God is love. That should be our nature. When we're presented with the time to be angry, we should choose love over anger and wrath. We shouldn't be like Jonah. I mean, I get why he didn't want to go to Nineveh. Nineveh was a bad place. I mean, anybody ever look into the history of that place? That was the capital of Assyria. They later on, they capture the northern kingdom. That's right, Assyria captured northern, right? Okay, good. Babylon got Judah. Okay. But I mean, I get why he didn't want to go. I mean, these people were famous. They filleted people alive. They hung their skins on walls. I mean, this was a terrorist group, if there ever was. But God's seen the souls there. And if God tells us to go talk to somebody, no matter what the reason, we should go. Because if God sends us, or God tells us, go talk to Brother Chad. Go talk to Chad. That means God's not done with Chad. God has something for us to do. He wants us to get to Him. He wants us to plant a seed, water a seed, something. Because that's the thing that just kind of got me, and I've been dwelling on is my anger for people, some people. Has it stopped me from going and witnessing to them? What has that anger done to my testimony? Do people look at me and say, oh, well, there's something different about him? Or do they look at me and say, well, he's just like everybody else? He loves those that love Him. I mean, Christ gave His life for us. He purchased us. The reasonable duty that we have is to live for Him. I mean, that says that in Romans. That's just the reasonable. I mean, God showed us what love was. We didn't know what love was until God showed us, because it wasn't that we loved God, it's that God loved us. And here's the thing, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. That should especially be true in our churches. We should love the people in here. We should care about the people in here. Well, I just don't like... There's things people are not going to like about people. That's okay. I'm going to let you in a little secret. This isn't a building full of perfect people. Y'all want to know how to know? I'm in here. If this was full of perfect people, I assure you, I would not be here. We're to love one another. When somebody comes in the door, some visitor, we don't know they lost. We don't know their story. Everybody's got a backstory. Everybody's got an interesting story. We're to love them. We're to be friendly. Ask them about Jesus. Who is God to them? Who is Jesus? I don't like asking people questions. Because see, there's one person in particular. It'd be really cool one of these days to get an email. Let me know, Aaron, if it ever happens. From somebody that said they ran somebody over back in 2003 and they got saved. I mean, you take that individual, you're not talking about me not being able to walk and being all slumped over like this. I am young. I'm relatively young. I mean, I'm only 36. Okay? I should have a few more miles in me. I should not have back problems. If my back problems trace back to when a guy hit me with a car and left me for dead. And how you know it's a guy if you don't know who hit you? My wife called, well, we were dating back then, but she called me back. Yeah, I was on the phone when this happened. She called back and a guy answered the phone. So I know it was a guy. And I've wondered often, what would I do if that guy walked through the door? I mean, seriously, what would I do if some guy just walked through the door, visited this church, never been in here, and he looks at me and says, I know who you are, and I left you for dead. Well, if my back hurts, am I going to hit him because I'm in a bad mood because of my back? Or am I going to look at him and I'm going to say, you know that day that you hit me, if I would have died, I'd have been in heaven. I'd have been with the Lord because I trusted Jesus Christ as my Savior and I trusted the work that He did on the cross. Now, if these roles were reversed and I hit you and left you for dead and you died, where would you have been? Would I give Him the gospel? Or would I just be angry? This is the thing that worries me about the anger. This is why I'm convicted about the anger, is because it's real easy to stand and to say, yes, I'll love everybody. And then take a hard look whenever something goes south and you see that the anger builds up and you see what your first reaction is. And maybe I'm the only person that has this problem. And if I am, the best thing that can happen is y'all pray for me about this. I mean, that's the best thing that could happen, is I have people praying for me about this. Because James 1:20 says, for wrath of man worketh not righteousness of God. No way is my anger ever going to work anything good for God. Well, you got mad because you stole from the church. Yeah. Still not justified. We go back to Matthew in verse 46. If you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? If you salute only your brethren, what do you more than others? Do even the publicans so? But ye therefore perfect, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. See, Jesus is trying to tell them, we need to be different. People need to see a difference in us. And one way they can see the difference in us is when bad things happen, when most people get angry. Whenever I'm sitting there and I get a text message saying this happened, and of course there's people around, and of course everybody there knows me. I mean, I'm vacationing with my in-laws. Everybody sees me get fighting mad, ready to whoop somebody. That really says a lot, doesn't it? I mean, that's not good for a testimony. The best reaction I could have possibly ever had was when I got that text message and they, because I don't know if y'all know this. I know I walk around with this huge smile on my face, and Pastor preached about that Wednesday. Every now and then, though, I take this huge smile off and I got an angry face. And the sad thing is people will ask me if I'm happy when I'm happy. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. I mean, I'm smiling. Can't you tell? Nobody has ever asked me if I'm mad. They know I'm mad. The best reaction I could have had would have been, you know what, we need to pray for these individuals. We need to figure out some way to get a track underneath that van, some kind of little metal track or something that can at least give them the gospel while they're sitting underneath there trying to rob us again. Because the thing is, if we can win these people over, okay, if we can get the gospel out there to them, I mean, I wish I could go out there and just get everybody saved, but, it's a drawing of the Holy Spirit. But if we can get the gospel out there to them, and they can get saved, that's one less problem we're going to have to worry about. That's one little less distraction. That's one place where money doesn't have to go in the church, because that money could have went to, once again, the gas to get the kids, the lights, to missions. Anywhere to further the gospel. Instead, it's on a part. Kind of felt like Jonah there. It's like it's looking, instead of a little gourd that he was all worried about, it's a catalytic converter I was worried about. But that's what we have to do. We have to get out there. And there are people that it's a lot easier for me to go up to and talk to. You get me a person covered up in tattoos and they got a whole bunch of piercings and they look like they're going to kill me. I can, for some reason, walk up to them and say, hey, let me talk to you. I can ask them about one of the weird tattoos. For some reason, I don't know. Them are people I can go up to and you get a guy in a suit and a tie and he gets out of a Mercedes-Benz, I'm so nervous to talk to that guy about the Lord. I need to get out of my comfort area, but, once again, I work in construction, so, the people covered in the tattoos and, they got more holes in them than a sprinkler. I'm used to seeing that. But I don't need to be out on a job. And these people that I'm trying to get to come to church, these people I'm trying to, tell about Jesus, I don't need them to see me out on a job fighting mad. It just ruins my testimony. And then once again, it robs from the church because people say, well, Joey, he acts just like us and he goes to Liberty, so that's the way Liberty is. That just stole from the church, didn't it? Going back to that sermon my dad preached. I admit, this is so easy to read this and to say, I can do this. But I really think this falls underneath that when I'm weak, then I'm strong. This right here is a verse that makes me pretty weak because I get mad. And all I can do is I can just depend on the Lord and lean on the Lord and say, Lord, I'm mad. This right here has happened. Help me. Kind of like that one guy. Do you believe? I believe. Help my unbelief. But y'all pray for me. Pray for my anger. Pray that I've done good. I haven't hit nobody in a while. Aaron's clearing his throat like I've hit him. I haven't hit him yet. But this is something to seriously, I don't know if y'all have this problem, but it is something to seriously consider is how we react when things go south. And what we can do. The best thing we can do is to react in love. Because we have to remember at one time we were enemies of God. There was one time that I was lost and I wanted nothing to do with God. God still, He loved me. He died for me. I've talked to people who were trying to think of how to word this where it's actually nice. I've talked to people who were Nazis, like literally. One individual comes to mind. He got saved when he was in prison. He was claimed Nazi. He had swastikas tatted on him and everything. And interesting guy. He got saved in prison because somebody took the time to, and somebody that should have hated him, but instead chose to love him, handed him a Bible and talked to him about the Bible, and he had nothing to do in prison but read. And so he figured he'd take that Bible and he'd prove that guy wrong. Before it's all said and done, he got saved. And he'd sit there, and we talked about it, and we talked about, how Jesus was on the cross. And, said it wasn't the Romans that put him there. It wasn't the Jews that put him there. It wasn't the nails that kept him on the cross. It was us. It was his love for me. It was his love for y'all. So that one day we can have fellowship with God again, like in the beginning. I hope this has made some sense. I hope I'm not the only person that needed this. If it was, then well, I needed this. That's just what it boils down to. I guess, Brother Jonathan, would you pray to dismiss us, please?